So, hey, I'm Anna, and I'm 19. I'm from Canada in Nova Scotia. But I also grew up partially in England, so sort of half and half, but mostly Canadian.
Yeah. And yeah, cool. What do you study in St. Andrews?
My major is film and English, and I always sort of throw in a random third for like each semester. And I've had like social anth, opera was one of them.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
And right now it's art history. So I kind of can't wait to get rid of it because I know it's your major, but it's just such a struggle.
Oh, I don't like it.
Okay, great.
So I start most interviews with this, but what's your earliest memory?
Earliest memory? I don't know. I feel like I don't have a distinct memory because, you know, when you grow up somewhere and you're surrounded by the things you grew up with, they kind of like trigger memories.
Yeah.
But because until I was 7, I was in England, I don't have those things around. So sometimes I feel like I almost like blacked out my childhood.
From like 1 to 7.
Yeah, like it's black. But I mean, it's probably, I don't know, playing with my sister Caitlin and like my dad playing guitar in the background, that sort of thing. Like just messing around. Nothing distinct, but just the sort of the everyday routine, I guess.
Oh, that's nice. Where in England were you born / lived for 7 years?
I was born in sort of like northeast London, so in Stoke Newington, in Hackney. And I lived there with my whole fam, like parents, sister, and little brother. Yeah. And then when I was 7, we moved to Canada.
Oh, okay. Why did you move?
So my dad's Canadian, and we were originally going to go for a sabbatical, like for his work.
Yeah.
So it was going to be like maybe 2 years. And then it sort of just turned into like 3 years, 4 years. And then at a certain point, it had been 10 years and we were just there. But amidst that, anyway, my parents divorced anyway. So, and they both had like their own separate jobs. So we knew it would be like a permanent thing.
Yeah.
I always thought it was funny because
jobs in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
We always kind of left on the note, like, we'll be back in 2 years. And then we just never came back. So everyone was a bit like, wait, what? But I think it worked out. It was pretty good.
Nice. So you have siblings.
Yes.
Caitlin's older, and then
Caitlin's older.
Is your brother young?
Yeah, so my little brother is only 14.
Okay.
And he lives in England at the moment with my mom. So it's kind of like he had the reverse of what Caitlin and I had, which is weird.
What kind of older sister are you, and what kind of younger sister are you, do you think?
Ooh. I think if Caitlin were here, it may not be the same, but I was, as a younger kid, I was a really annoying younger sister. Like the sort of cliche of just like permanently pestering and wanting to like find out what she was doing.
Was it like you looked up to her kind of thing and you just wanted to be around her?
Yeah, and I think she didn't really want to give me the time of day, which is, to be fair, like I probably wouldn't have if I had a similar person.
Too, yeah.
Like, I was slightly annoying. But as we've gotten older, I think it's weird because we went to the same uni, obviously, just for that 1 year of crossover. And the same thing happened in high school. So every time we have that crossover, it is a bit of an odd experience because we're like impeaching on each other's worlds.
Yeah, that is kind of...
So I became less of the like annoying little sister and we're more friends. But it is an odd thing when you become friends with each other's friends. So like Caitlin's graduated, a lot of her friends are still here. So I end up not necessarily hanging out all the time, but seeing
Caitlin.
them. Yeah, I'm the new Caitlin. But it is weird. Like I think for her too, sometimes she's like, oh, like you're with all my friends.
Is it like a competitive type? Like, is there a competitive edge to it?
I think we've never actually had a competitive edge because we're so different.
Yeah.
I think if you're not involved, the only crossover we ever really had was football. And even with that, like I'm not a very competitive person, so Caitlin would often be in a much higher level than me, and that was just kind of okay because I was like, I'm cool to be on the threes. That's more my scene. So in a way, we'd never had the competitive thing. But then with my little brother, he's so much younger than us because my sister and I are like 18 months apart, and then he's quite a few years younger. So I was always kind of, I feel like I was just the worst sibling. As a kid, I would just sort of like mess with him. And now obviously it's a bit different because I'm more like protective of him. But he's really funny. Are you the
protective sister?
Caitlin's the maternal one, I would say. Yeah. Like, you know, sort of keeps us in line. So we like to mess around. I think I revert to like the attitude of a 14-year-old boy when I'm around him. Like I just become immediately on that level humor-wise. So it's not great, but it's fun.
So describe a bit like about where you grew up in, I guess, or Canada or England, whatever. You said you don't have as many memories of.
Well, it's kind of an odd thing because I had obviously those first 7 years in the UK. So I had an English accent, and, half my mom's family is all English. She's from Cambridge. She grew up her whole life in England. Then we moved to Canada, and for a long time I had that sort of hybrid thing where your accent's a bit in the middle.
Yeah.
Obviously now it's quite Canadian, but people would always call me the English one, whereas now I don't think anyone would ever call me the English one because I always have a Canadian accent. But it's weird how in Canada, if I went home today, my friends would still call me the English one, but here everyone calls me the Canadian one.
Do they still think you sound English even to this day?
Yeah, because even though I don't,
Yeah.
I'll say things like tomato or vitamin or something like that just kind of stuck. And then, of course, you get sort of slightly torn apart. But there's that weird mixed identity thing. But I would say I'm mostly Canadian. Like, all of my childhood memories are from Nova Scotia. And I didn't move back to the UK until I graduated high school. So kind of all those preliminary things.
Is that where you guys live now?
So right now...
Denmark, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a bit weird. When I was in grade 8, my parents divorced, but we were all in Canada. And then when I was in grade 11, my dad moved to Denmark and remarried, so he lives with his wife and her kids. And then my mom, right after high school, so after grade 12, she moved to England with my brother. And Caitlin was in Scotland. So, and I was in Canada for a little while. So there's a bit of
international
things going on. But at the moment, it's the UK and Denmark.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you think where you grew up shaped your identity?
I think that, honestly, I always think about this. I'm like, what if I hadn't, what if I had moved earlier or later? But I think I have a very limited experience of Canada, like only sort of the East Coast in my province. But I do consider myself quite Canadian in the way of, like, the things my friends and I would find interesting or fun would be, going outdoors and, like, just kind of, even as a kid, it was just playing outside, or it'd be like, oh, let's go canoeing, let's go up to someone's cottage and go for a swim, let's go kayaking, those sorts of things, let's go skiing, because those were the kind of accessible activities. So I think that kind of shaped my interest and approach to the world of being like, it was a very relaxed childhood. And I look at my brother, and that's when I kind of realize how different it is, because he's in the UK now, and it's a lot more rigid through school.
Oh, do you think?
Especially where he is, because there's not that many outdoorsy things accessible in his area. He lives in Surrey. So it is quite different to see. I think it kind of almost makes me more sure of what mine was, because I can see the contrast.
Oh, that's so interesting to have that kind of concrete example.
Yeah, because before I was like, oh, I don't know, your average childhood,
so
and
immaterial.
then you look at it and you're like, oh, it is quite different. I do know what it was.
Huh.
Yeah.
In what ways are you similar to your parents? And how do you feel about seeing those traits in yourself?
Oh God, I think always as a kid, it was the classic thing where I would always side with my dad and my sister would always side with my mom. But then as you've gotten older, I feel like it's almost shifted. Like, it's not switched.
Yeah.
My dad and I have the exact same humor, and I think my sister and my mom kind of, like, don't get it sometimes. Like, I'll say stuff and they're just kind of politely nodding or whatever. So definitely have that side of him. But I've realized that my temperament is maybe more... My temperament's like my dad, but my, like, sort of way of handling things is more like my mom. I feel like I'm quite reserved and, like, would not really let on if something was going on, which is very... Almost like the English trait that's just never left. But yeah, I guess that's kind of maybe you don't like that about yourself, but I mean, it's not necessarily the worst trait to have.
So what was little Anna like in, like, elementary or, like, primary school?
I was so shy, like, to a almost humorous degree. Like, I was just like a caricature of a human. I used to... Literally, for a long time, I would make my sister speak for me. Like, not in my family, but in social situations. Which, funnily, I know you know Caitlin, so you might notice it. But she's so outspoken and, like, very charismatic and, like, a people person. And obviously, I'm older, so I'm not as, like, I was as a kid.
Socially,
but for a long time, it would be, we'd walk in and she'd, whoever says, go introduce yourself to whoever. And I would whisper to Caitlin, I'd go, okay, say my name and all that, and she'd go, hi, I'm Caitlin, this is Melissa's sister Anna, blah, 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 and she'd go on a whole thing, and I would just stand there and nod, and I realized that, obviously, I've grown out of that, and probably partially because Caitlin moved before I did, but it is weird how sometimes when I'm with her, like, we revert, so, like, I'll be in even a family setting, and someone asks us about St. Andrews or something, and she'll just start going, and I'll just, like, let her take the wheels, and it is weird, but I think that's kind of one of those things whenever you're around. It's like when you're around people and your accent almost changes. Mm-hmm. Like, you just kind of pick up what's happening around
like,
you.
Almost like different people bring out different parts of you. Yeah. And not in, like, a bad or good way, it just naturally happens.
Yeah, it is so true.
I definitely am different around my one sibling versus another.
Oh my gosh,
if it's an individual thing versus, like, in St. Andrews.
Yeah. So I think it can be weird.
Also, when you have that crossover, too,
it's, like, super weird. The crossover, like, all of her friends and...
It's revealed.
Exactly. All her friends are my academic parents. There's 4 dads and 4 moms, and I remember being so, like, not completely quiet, but just quite reserved and, like, polite.
Yeah.
And nowadays, that's definitely not the case. You know, I'm sort of going around being, like,
but that's, like, what she knew you as more, so you're like,
yeah, so I think when she came back for football ball, she was like, oh, you seem comfortable, you know what I mean? But I think it's good.
Yeah, of course.
To kind of have that.
So moving on to, like, middle school, if you were to assign a catchphrase to, like, 13-year-old Anna, what would it be? Or if you had one, that's even better.
God, that is hard, a catchphrase. I feel like my friends and I were always the ones that, like, we didn't want to grow up, you know? So I feel like junior high, middle school, whatever you call it, was the kind of classic thing where half of the people are sort of starting to go maybe to parties and things.
Like, wanting
and then
to
the
be
other
really
people,
adult.
are like, I refuse, which was totally me. I think probably while some people were at parties, my friends and I were playing with, like, Playmobil. It was such a stark difference.
Yeah.
So I guess we were just always about, like, playing.
Yeah.
Which it became the embarrassing thing, you know? Like, you didn't want people to maybe know that you still would, like, play pretend with your friends or something. But I think I'm kind of glad because you only have that for such a short period of your life. You may as well extend as long as you can.
And I don't think you appreciate it when you don't really appreciate it when you're in it. So if you can, like, maybe add a couple years onto that, it's not that bad.
I was at this one friend's mom who would always say that to us. And the friend would always get embarrassed, like, oh, Mom, shut up. You're so embarrassing. But I was like, that's such a great point. Like, she would just say, be young, you know. Like, don't grow up too fast because you'll regret it. And I was like, that's
the majority of your life is as an adult, which is...
I know.
Boring.
I would still play Playmobil. Like, if someone had a good set, hit me up.
Exactly. When did that, like, kind of change for you then? When did you start wanting to be more adulty?
I feel like it was that kind of transition to high school. So for me, it was broken up, and I started high school in grade 10 to 12. And I feel like as soon as you get there, I went from a tiny junior high, which was basically my neighborhood. It was so small. And then my high school was 3 years, and it was 2,400 people. So it was kind of the opposite. So I feel like being thrown in there, you more want to define yourself and not be just with your childhood friends. You kind of want to expand. So I think that was the time when it was like, okay, put the Playmobil down, figure out what you're doing, who you are. So I guess it would have been starting in that point.
What was your high school experience like then?
I mean, on paper it was pretty good. Like, there was nothing standout bad in high school. I think it was more familial things because it was such a crazy time in terms of people moving. So it wasn't great that way. Like, I think emotionally I was a bit all over the shop. But in terms of friends and everything, I'm lucky that I had really good friends the whole time who's kind of stayed mostly the same, start to finish. And people I'm still friends with today, even though I haven't been back to Canada for about 2 years. So it was a positive experience, but I think the things outside of high school maybe weren't. But I kind of try to keep them separate because I don't want to, like, kind of tarnish the good things.
Was that when your dad was moving to Denmark? And then,
so Caitlin moved when I was in grade 10. She graduated as I was going to grade 11. So she moved to Scotland. My mom said, we're going to move for your 12th year of school, which didn't happen, but at the time I was like, oh no, I was freaked out. And then, you know, this is the end of the world. And then my dad moved as well. And then one of my best friends moved. So it was just kind of like, everyone's leaving.
There wasn't a ton of stability, really.
Yeah,
it was kind of like
there was definitely a transient kind of thing. But in the end, like, I did graduate in high school, which I'm really thankful for. And my mom was there, and my brother was there. So I did still have sort of like a base in Halifax.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
What's Halifax like?
Halifax, it's funny because I feel like no one is from Nova Scotia here. The only people I know from Nova Scotia are my sister who went here, and a girl who I actually went to elementary, junior high, and high school with,
that's so weird.
who, funnily enough, lived in the flat that I live in now, never before. But it's kind of like a small, it is the capital of Nova Scotia, but it's very small.
Yeah.
And it's weirdly has a lot of Scottish influence. Yeah. So there's a lot of sort of kilts and bagpipes floating around.
Oh, lucky you.
Exactly. So it's like a bit like St. Andrews, and sort of based on fisheries.
Yeah.
So although that wasn't a part of my life, it was always a part of like
the culture,
the city and the culture. Yeah. But it's a sort of seaside Maritimes place, and it's like quite small, but it has a lot going on, I would say, for considering the size.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because it is the capital, so anything that's new would be in Halifax.
Yeah.
But I think it was like, as places go, as a kid, it's a great place to grow. Because you kind of have the freedom and the safety to just explore.
Yeah.
You know, like if you were a little kid and your parents said, go play outside, you wouldn't necessarily have to know exactly where you were.
Yeah.
Because it was somewhat fine. You knew kind of every neighbor on the corner. So it was pretty good that way.
Yeah.
Maybe a little sheltered, but but good.
How did you end up in St. Andrews then?
It's actually funny because I remember being so stubborn because Caitlin would, of course, tell me all these wonderful stories. And I was like, yeah, whatever. You know, it doesn't sound that good. And I was like, I don't want to do what Caitlin's doing. And then my mom was moving, everyone gone. So I was like, okay, I'm either going to be in Canada with all my friends but no family, or I'll be in the UK with my family sort of nearby and maybe no friends, you know, create this new life. So in the end, I just sort of like, everything kept narrowing itself, whether it was marks or just sort of finances and things. And it sort of narrowed down. It was between one school in Canada or St. Andrews. And I think at the end I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be looking at the universities in Halifax and in Canada in general. A lot of them seemed like a sort of extension of high school. Yeah. Which is appealing to some, but wasn't really what I wanted. I didn't want the same thing. So I was like, you know what, let's just do this because at the end of the day, Caitlin is there. You know, and my family will be nearby. So I think it was a good choice. And I think I would have been a very different person if I had gone to a Canadian one.
How did Caitlin respond when you, like, decided?
Well, so the funny thing was, because I was so averse to it, she was always like, come on, it's great. And she wanted me to be interested. Yeah. And then, of course, once I decided, it was like her dream come true. So I don't think she would stand by that now because maybe it wasn't always great. But in that moment, she was very enthusiastic and wanted to show me all sorts of stuff. And I was still a bit of a brat about it. But and I remember her friends, even the classic, you know, add me on Facebook. Yeah. And one of her friends was like, I'm going to adopt you. And
that's such a good feeling, though, to, like, know that you're welcomed.
It was nice because I kind of came in knowing a lot of, even if it was just names or faces, like you would just kind of know a little bit about what was going on. Yeah. It
felt a little less foreign when you're thrown into something so new too.
Yeah, especially at football because everyone would be like, "Oh, you're Caitlin's sister."
Does that ever become like negative?
Well, I think more in school it was because Caitlin was always such a high achiever. And I wasn't like a bad student, but I was definitely not on her level, especially in high school. And we always had the same teachers. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the nature of the small city. So it was always, you're Caitlin's sister. And then maybe the first test back, it was like, but I thought you were Caitlin's sister, you know? But I never really minded because I think we were so different that as soon as people spent even like 10 minutes, they'd be like, oh, this is kind of a different thing. But to this day, sometimes when I'm out, people will go, do I know you? And I'll say, no, whatever. And then they'll go, you just really remind me, like your voice or your face really reminds me of this girl I know. And I've had people recognize me just by voice, which really freaks me out as Caitlin's sister. Because I don't think we sound alike, but I don't know why, but I guess it's a thing.
That's interesting. Yeah. So in what ways do you think you fit into St. Andrews, and in what ways don't you?
I think in terms of like friendships, I've found some really, the kind of friendships when you can kind of see it being a lifelong thing. So I feel really confident in those friendships and that they are, like you just feel like you just fit. Yeah. But then I think one of the biggest ones where I don't fit would probably be sometimes the kind of cliche of the St. Andrews lifestyle, you know, a lot of wealth and a lot of like excess. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that someone who has wealth lives a life of excess, but
yeah,
you do kind of encounter it a lot. And sometimes I find it difficult because that's not really my financial circumstance, and that's fine, and it's fine with my friends and everything. But once in a while, it can be difficult, you know, if you are working, or if, you know,
or if you have to
aren't
say
on the
no
same
to,
page.
like,
Yeah, just saying no to a few events, or whether, it's just dinner on a night out. And it is interesting because you do see the people who get it are the ones who stick around, and the people who don't, you kind of just end up shedding. I think my mom always warned me of that. She was like, I don't know. The only one thing she said was, I don't know if you will like that side of St. Andrews, because she knew that it was something that's not really my thing. I think Caitlin found it easier to deal with, and she was like, I don't know, everyone's quite, you know, like even going to class, everyone's always dressed very fancily, and she was like, that's not really your thing. It's like, it's okay though, because I think it's good to be able to handle that. So in a way, even though it's been sometimes negative, like, then you kind of know how to handle those experiences, which we'll definitely encounter outside of St. Andrews. So I guess it's kind of the life lesson. But it's just definitely everywhere you turn.
That's very true. And it's also been something that almost everyone I ask that question to answers with.
I know, it's funny. I feel like even the people
version of it
who are probably the ones who are making other people feel that way would say the same, because nobody needs to make people feel that way.
Exactly. What kinds of stuff do you do outside of academics here?
So I play football, obviously, and it's funny because I used to always be in band and jazz band, like my city jazz band.
Really? What instrument did you play?
I played saxophone.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Which was always a big part of my life in Canada, but I haven't done it here. There are a lot of bands and things, but it's all a bit, it's more like, come jam with us. Like, it's quite
like
free flow. So it's not really my thing. I think I was just a bit intimidated by it. But I haven't done that, but I think I want to kind of, even if I'm just like a viewer rather than a participant. But in terms of like outside, I'm not the most involved in extracurriculars. It's more like just with friends. So we do a lot of like that kind of nothingness that friends do, which I actually like. I think people will go, oh my gosh, we haven't done anything today. But I kind of appreciate those days when you just kind of float around and you just chat about things, and that's often when you have the best conversations. Or you find yourself kind of doing something unexpected, like walking somewhere you've never been, or hopping on a bus, taking a random trip to Dundee or something, kind of like just stepping outside of your comfort zone. I think a lot of my social engagements in St. Andrews are unpredicted, and it's usually just, what are we doing today? And it tends not to be things that I've scheduled.
That's nice though. Why do you study what you study? Film and English, you said?
Yeah. I think in high school I was, probably all my life, I've always been more, I found it easier and more engaging on the arts side of things than the sciences or math and things like that. So I always knew that if I was going to go to uni, that would be what I studied. And then in terms of film, that was actually just really rash. And like, I have no experience with film or no real exposure to it, especially in an academic sense. And I wasn't even like a film nut or anything like that. But then as I was applying to schools and I would look through the list of courses, I think I just couldn't stand the idea of just being restrained to English, because I know that although English can be amazing, it can also be dry at times if you're maybe taking a course that's not your kind of niche thing. And I think it was partially, that looked fun, but also the fear of being restrained or like stuck to one thing. So I kind of threw it in the mix. It wasn't in everything I applied to, but with St. Andrews, it just kind of worked out. I was actually accepted only as a film student. And then ended up saying, no, I'd like to do both. Because again, I was like, I can't just have one.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
Oh, cool. So what do you cherish most about St. Andrews?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think, honestly, friendships. I'm sure everyone kind of says something along that line. Because although I think St. Andrews is an individual experience from a lot of unis, it seems quite unique. I think that at the same time, you could probably get that kind of, at least the academic portion or maybe the athletics, you can get those in other places. But people are unique, and no matter where you go, you're going to have a different experience. So I think the one thing that is truly unique to St. Andrews is the people that surround you.
So true.
Yeah.
So what do you see for yourself in the future, or want to see? It can be as imaginative as possible, as like you want. Or as realistic as you want, whatever you want to do with it.
My 5-year plan.
Yeah.
I am such the cliche of literally not no prospect, but no
There's
plan.
nothing going on in my life. No.
There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, I kind of like that I don't know.
Yeah.
Because then it's, you can
Being
say
flexible is like
crazy.
a huge plus when it comes to future plans.
And then there is that also, the realistic aspect of, usually when you have such a rigid plan, it's not going to go to plan.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of see myself not leaving uni and kind of hitting the world and going from there. I think that I'll probably study something a little further, like maybe film in a more practical sense or something like that. Because I think I picture myself in 4 years, which is only basically 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that I would be in a place to start truly living life that way.
I mean, you're 22. It's like weird that everyone expects like such.
I don't even think I'll be 22. I think I'll be 21.
Oh yeah, you'll be younger too.
So it just seems too kind of. I mean, who knows? When I'm there, maybe it'll
that's
be
your
different.
like youthful spirit coming out again.
Exactly. Never want to grow up.
Yeah, no, that's what I found too. It's strange to me that you have at 21, 22, you're meant to like have a 9-to-5 fully paid job and be like, that's it. I know it.
It is crazy. I think, like,
so
especially
young.
when you are working, even if it's just part-time things, as I bartend and things like that, and it's not particularly demanding.
Yeah.
It can be like tiring, but you do kind of realize the monotonous nature of it. So especially over summer, if you're working 40 to 50 hours a week, which is what I kind of need to do to sustain St. Andrews, and then it's fine. Like, I'm sure everywhere you go, there's always people you meet, but it does end up becoming just almost like a repetitive motion of every day you do the same thing. Mm-hmm. There's probably a few differences between the days. Mm-hmm. So I kind of dread that becoming my life. So I think I just really want to steer clear of anything that would go that way.
So like something with variety and...
Yeah. There's something that you're just engaged in.
Yeah.
I think service industry is such a tricky thing because it's such an important part of the world. Mm-hmm. And those people are incredible, honestly, the stuff that they put up with. But I can't imagine being in that world for too long because I think I would go insane.
Yeah, I agree.
Lose it. Like, I just don't think I could. And I feel like I've seen it happen to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, also the idea, not that like customer service isn't a part of almost every job that you have, but like a specific hospitality customer service job.
Yeah, I feel like it's that hospitality thing of people like just demanding.
Yeah, like demanding something from you that is actually not sustainable. Like 100% happiness.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
All
it's
the
such
time.
A falsehood.
You never
and it's
mess
also
up
crazy because
like,
you never realize what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously with people you never know, but also just the place, especially in a restaurant or something, there's always carnage behind the doors. And I remember like one time there was it was a classic place when it's sort of like a middle class kind of customer, but then there was sort of a snootiness about it. I don't know if it was maybe the establishment that drew them or whatever it was, but there was sort of this, I'm a little bit fancier than you attitude. And it was slightly entertaining, but slightly draining. Yeah. And one time this woman came in, it was probably a weekday, midday or something, and she's like, I need a bottle of champagne for my friends and I was just like, oh God. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I go get her some champagne from the back, and I realized that I'd forgotten there'd been all this flooding going on, which had to do with like sewage and things, aka it should have been closed. But anyway, so my boss looks at me and he's like, okay, do you want to go grab that? And I just kind of gave him this look of, are you seriously asking me to go swim through basically shit water to go get this lady a glass of champagne? And he was like, yeah. So I kind of looked around and was like, what are my options here? I grabbed this plastic bin and was like, I guess we got to make this work. So I kind of hopped in my boat.
Oh my God.
Grabbed a nearby bottle of wine, sort of rowed my way through because it was just gross. And it was very early in the shift. I knew that once I went in, you were going to be covered in this for the day. So I sort of go down, let the currents take me. I end up the wine cellar.
Strangest situation.
Yeah, I sort of climb the shelves, throw everything in my boat, go back, moor it up, and then I hop back on, wipe myself off, throw on the smile, walk around the corner, and I'm like, here's your bottle. What can I do for you? And I think she asked me for something. I was like, oh, can I also get a rosé? And I was like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny to me because she was having such a her perception of the experience was so different than mine.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember thinking, this must be
so
many people
yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
It just cracks me up.
Which happens a lot. I mean, just in everyday life.
Yeah.
What people present versus
the
what's
reality.
going on. Yeah, that's true. This is kind of like shifting gears, but what's like a constant you've seen throughout your life or relied on or just something you've kind of noticed has always been there?
That's a hard one because I think that I actually crave a sort of like permanence because my life has been quite transient, especially as a teenager. Like I have never had, right now I don't have like a room or anything in either of my parents' houses, which is fine. That's part of growing up.
Yeah.
But it is kind of an odd thing to not have when you
just
think of
the idea
home,
of it. Yeah.
I don't really know what I think of because it's like, oh, my brother's bunk bed. Like,
yeah.
But I think honestly, one of my friends from home who I met when I was 7 and I moved to Canada, he's remained my best friend throughout all of life.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't. He's the only one who's come to St. Andrews, and I'm going to visit Canada for the first time this summer, and he's planning it all. So I think, in a weird way, even though he hasn't physically been in my life for a lot of it, he's always been there as a person, as a concept as well. So I guess it would be him as a concept.
So meta, yeah.
So meta.
Oh, that's really nice, though.
Yeah.
And, okay, I only have, like, a couple more questions.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I like asking them. And then we can talk about whatever when we're finished. But what's the biggest thing you've had to overcome in your life or are still working on overcoming?
I think it would just be kind of accepting. Well, no, I think I have accepted, like, the way that a family doesn't have to be the sort of expectation of you all live in one house or you all live near each other, that sort of thing. So understanding that an untraditional family is still can be a unit. But I still struggle with that. I mean, I have 3 step-siblings who are Danish, and I obviously know them now decently well, but because they live in a different country and I only visit my dad, maybe 1 to 3 times a year, I don't see them that often. So it is weird.
Are they much younger than you? Or?
They're all kind of weirdly similar to each of my family. So one of them's close to Caitlin, one of them's close to me and my brother.
Yeah.
And they're really lovely, and so is my stepmom. But sometimes it is weird to have for example, like my dad kind of be at through their childhood or maybe their young adult life for the moments that he can't be there for us. And that's not something that's necessarily a choice, but it's just the way it is. So I think it can be kind of like striking that way. Yeah. Or sometimes when I go to visit him, I find this really weird. And I remember the first time I went and he just started speaking Danish. And I remember being like so taken aback because although it was slightly dodgy Danish, it was still like, when did you acquire this sort of incredible skill? Like a whole language. And seeing your own parent, someone you know so well, kind of bring this out of nowhere, I found that really weird. It's a good thing, but it was definitely like that kind
almost seeing your parents as like human beings.
That's definitely very odd. I think a lot of kids who have that, I mean, everyone has that moment you realize your parents are actually humans and not like superheroes. Yeah,
it comes at different levels though, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of didn't want to learn that, so like refused to accept
I don't want to either. I think.
But obviously now it's much more of a thing. In a way, it's been good because I think my dad especially, like my parents were kind of more, we get each other more, so you can kind of be a bit more honest about maybe things not going perfectly or something bad. Yeah. But I think it's healthier. Even though there is a slight sadness like that.
Yeah, it's like a loss of romanticization
you
romanticization of your
parents.
It's kind of gone. Was that a pressure you felt, the kind of like family unit thing growing up in like a small town? Was it?
Yeah. I think, it's not that anyone sort of expected anything of it, but I do remember, it's like, when you can be really awful to your siblings, but then if someone else said something, you kind of lose it, right? So I guess that sort of happened. Obviously, I was like very mad with my dad for moving, especially because my little brother was only like 10 at the time. Yeah. But then I feel like I could slag him off as much as I wanted, but the moment a friend would say, I can't believe your dad left you, I'd be like, he didn't leave me.
You're out of line.
You're out of line. Like, you don't know him, and I'd sort of kick off. So I think it wasn't a pressure, but it was like that simultaneous thing where you kind of want to, you hate them and you want to just be mad about it, but then you're also really protective.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a weird dichotomy, but sure. I guess that's more an internal thing, like projecting that other people think badly of your family when they probably don't think about you at all.
I find that reminding myself of that would solve a lot of my like internal conflicts. I'm like,
my gosh,
they
it definitely
probably
does.
Don't think about you ever. So
literally never once crossed their mind. That's a whole other issue.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so how does that kind of shape your value system, or like what is your value system? The kind of set of principles that guide your life.
I feel like I'm really weirdly focused on. My dad always kind of roasts me for this, like justice, or like that sounds silly, but like kind of not morals, but like when something's not fair. I feel like that's the only time that I get really angry.
Needs to be rectified.
Yeah, and my friends would say that, because I remember one time there was a classic sort of friend blow up. Everyone's slightly mad at everyone. Yeah. We're all just talking about it. And somebody said at the end, oh, Anna, you're always so calm, or something like that. And I literally laughed, and I told my dad that, and he snorted and was like, haha, that's the opposite of true. You're never calm. And it was funny because obviously my friends have a different experience of me, because we're friends out of choice, and like I would never like get mad at them because we always, you know, kind of like to talk things through. But the only time that I ever truly kind of actually get riled up is when someone's being unfair or left out, or something's mean. And it's weird because I think that's kind of my only sort of one line that's like, don't cross that.
Where do you think that kind of comes from?
I honestly don't know, because my family's not particularly religious or anything, so it doesn't come from there. Or I don't remember, my parents were never strict.
Did you ever feel like you were treated unfairly, like either in school or
I feel like it's
growing
almost
up,
like a romantic thing of like, as a kid, just being naive that way, you know, thinking like, don't be mean. I remember always trying to like, it was that naive thing when my friends, if I had different friend groups, especially as a kid, I always wanted them to all be friends. And sometimes that doesn't work. That's just the way it is. And I think I always struggled with that, because I would want everyone to be sort of integrated, but maybe that wasn't going to be, they didn't mesh or whatever. But that's probably just my mom. I think she's very like, if someone was ever unkind, that was her one thing. You'd truly be in trouble. Yeah. If you were mean to someone, you'd seriously.
That's a good thing to instill in your child.
That's the only time I ever really got in trouble.
It was when you were like unkind.
If something, like if something was truly unkind towards a friend, or if someone was ever really unkind to me, then my mom, I think my mom would never say, especially of a child, like you wouldn't speak ill of a child, but at the same time,
never invite her over for sleepovers.
Literally. I remember one time this friend was like pretty mean, and obviously we worked out, it was fine, but to this day, like my mom will sort of be like, I'm still not really over it. I'm like, okay, Mom, well, I am, so it's okay.
Do you think that affects how you are as a friend? Are you like hyper aware of the way too much your friends like might perceive something you said, or
my gosh, that is so
I use the right tone?
Yeah, it's the classic thing. You say like hello, and then you're like, oh my god, did they think that I said it wrong? And they're mad. Like, definitely. But I've also have had friends like that, and you always kind of feel yourself going, oh, don't be ridiculous. So I know to kind of say that to myself as well.
Again, that kind of internal conflict.
Yeah, of like, stop being a freak about it. But yeah, that's definitely like my biggest thing is always, oh my god, did I say that wrong?
Yeah, like
or have I hurt
conversations and being like,
or will they be mad because? But I also find it can be helpful sometimes when people don't realize, because oftentimes those kind of, when people get left out or someone's feelings are hurt, people don't actually realize it at all.
Yeah, it's not conscious. It's not like a deliberately mean attack.
Helpful to kind of say, just by the way.
Yeah.
But I also know I take it too far.
So it's just my last question, but if we have missed anything out, we can talk about it. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from your life so far? It could be related to your values, but different.
I honestly think that it's to kind of I think I've learned that when something bothers you or when something hurts you or upsets you, to not just tuck it under the rug, which is a thing that I always have done and still do sometimes.
Yeah.
My friend was joking about me today, actually, before I came. She was like, wow, I feel like I'm going to learn so much about you because you never talk about that. But, yeah, I think I've just kind of realized, maybe it's seeing other people do it and then realizing that you do it yourself, but it's really not helpful. And it always ends up coming out or coming up.
Yeah.
At some point, and then it's usually way worse because it's been years or days or whatever. So I think it's just to kind of let yourself have those moments, because to be sad is okay, because then if you have it and you kind of get rid of it or experience it, then you can move on and be happy about something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so I think it's just kind of letting yourself have those moments when you're not perfect.
No, because I feel like we're not, like, I know for me, a lot of the times, I'll be, if my friend doesn't tell me something and tells me something later, I'm like, why didn't you say that earlier? Like, oh my gosh, I'm totally here for you. But then I don't afford myself the same courtesy. I'm like, oh, it's too much of a burden. I'm not going to say anything.
That's so classic. I feel like we're all just huge hypocrites.
Yeah.
But I still don't stop. Like, I know it's there, but I'm like, oh, well.
I pick out a quote from, like, every interview. So, like, we're all just huge hypocrites. Quote.
Really inspirational quote from me.
Yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to ask. Is there anything, like, formative about your life you didn't talk about, or a topic you want to talk about?
No, I feel like I mean,
there's lots of stuff we didn't talk about in your life, because that'd be ridiculous.
My entire life story. I don't know, I feel like those are the kind of milestones, you know, everyone moving around, and then finally kind of calming down. I feel like this is the calmest my life has been in a long time.
Why do you say that?
Well, there was, like, in high school, obviously everyone was moving, but then when I graduated, my dad was supposed to come, obviously my graduation, and my brother's grade 6 grad, very important occasion, and then unfortunately his wife, Bella, had a brain aneurysm and, like, hemorrhage, and was hospitalized. She's fine, but at the time it was kind of doomsday of she's not gonna live past this, so obviously all of that was canceled. And then there was probably, like, it's still something you work on every day, but at the time, there was a long period of, like, kind of relearning stuff, and, like, luckily she's the exact same in my eyes as she was before, but there was that period of kind of getting physical strength back, or making sure that language was coming back, and those things. So then, kind of through that period, and then the next summer, they were supposed to visit Canada again, which will have been last summer, and she had a seizure, which, again, it was kind of just the aftermath, but it just felt like one thing after the end, of course, one another. So between that and then people not working, my dad didn't work for, like, a year when he moved to Denmark, and then my stepmom didn't work for a long time as well, and, like, my mom didn't have a job and didn't have a house, and now she does. So now that everyone's settled, it's kind of nice. I'm like, oh, everyone has a job, everyone has a house, or at least, you know, a flat or something. Well, that's good. So it's kind of good.
Nice.
Hopefully it stays that way for a bit.
We'll end on a happy note, though. Yeah. Things are calm.
Things are calm.
The life of Anna Renouf. Thank you.
No problem.